let's talk about the state of our universities yet again. Yesterday we had the Academic Staff Union of our universities, the president on the show, who was speaking about issues on wages, allowances, and all of the agreements that didn't quite come to fruition since 2009. And the ultimatum is that come 13th, which is Monday, they're going on strike if nothing is done. Well, today we're following up with other unions in our universities, because the Senior Staff Association of Nigerian Universities, SSANU, and Non-Academic Staff Union, NASU, protested across the country yesterday, and it came at the expiration of a 2-week ultimatum which they gave to the federal government to address their demands, which again are mainly welfare matters. So let's speak with Mr. Nuruddin Yusuf, who's the chairman, Senior Staff Association of Nigeria Universities, joins us from our Abuja studio. You're welcome to the program, Mr. Yusuf.
Thank you so much. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm sure you may have caught some part of our interview with Academic Staff Union ASU yesterday, where he was saying that, you know what, the government needs to sit down and sort the issues of all the unions. Don't say all the unions are asking for similar things and we can only do as much. But tell us about the side of your own demands. What exactly is the grouse? For those who may wonder, why protest all of the time? Haven't these issues been resolved?
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Just as you said, because I can see also in one of the newspaper headlines, that is actually the stark reality of our universities. The universities are in deplorable conditions. And also, most particularly, the staff are worst east by some of these things that is happening within our university system. And the issue, the crux of the matter, is about the renegotiation of an agreement that will enter with government in 2009. This agreement for 16 years has been on the table for renegotiation. Government has failed to renegotiate this agreement with the unions. And this is the crux of the matter. In addition to that, is that in 2022, when we went on strike and we called off on 24th of August 2022, we also entered agreement with the government signed by the then Minister of Education, Malam Adamu. And one of the main conditions of that agreement is that there will be no victimizations of our members. 4 months of our salaries were withheld. And when this current government came in, the president directed that these 4 months' salaries should be paid back to our members. Until date, only 2 months were paid, and even those 2 months were paid incompletely, because deductions, which are third-party deductions that are supposed to go to other beneficiaries, were not paid till today. And we've been engaging governments. Let's come down to the table and sit down and renegotiate our agreements. And it has been one committee to another committee, from Babalakin committee in 2015 till Yahya Ahmed committee now, nothing has been done. And we can't continue like this. We can't continue like this. And that is why we have called on government, after the expiration of our 2 weeks ultimatum, that we're going to begin a series of agitations to force government to come and sit down and negotiate with the union and improve our working conditions. Because for any university or any country to develop, we need to develop our education system. Universities are poorly funded. Imagine having a university that have over 40,000 students population and you just have accommodation for less than 5,000 or 6,000. Where will other states? So imagine what kind of things that is happening. And same for the staff in the universities. And this is what I said, that government should need to increase funding to universities, improve the staff welfare, improve our working conditions, so that we're able to deliver the best for this country. And I don't think this is much for the government to do. But all what we get each time is promises upon promises. We can't continue to live on promises. Promises doesn't put food on our table. And that is why the JAC of SSANU and NASU decided to call our members out yesterday for a one-day protest, so that we're able to tell the world, all education stakeholders and the government, that look, we can't continue to live in these global conditions. Our conditions of service, our welfare need to be taken care of.
Right, so tell us about your own ultimatum. So we know ASU's ultimatum elapses on the 13th, after which they say there'll be a strike. You have also threatened mother of all strikes. How close are we to that?
Well, as of Monday, we had engagement with the government, and they've set up an expanded committee by the early Ahmed expanded committee to engage with all the unions. But of course, previous events have given us little trust in some of these committees. For example, the early Ahmed committee, when it was inaugurated in 2023, thereabouts, apart from the inaugural meetings, the non-teaching staff have not been invited for any meeting till date. And what we get is that there has been interim reports. So where did the reports come from? When you've not even engaged the stakeholders. And what SSANU did, or what we did as JAC, is so well, as a responsible union, we need to give government also the opportunity to look at the issues. And that is why we shelved our initial plan to embark on a full-blown strike yesterday, but rather to start with a protest. And of course, we're going to also monitor and see response from government. But for us, government also need to demonstrate some sincerity. They need to also demonstrate some good gesture. At least pay our 2 month salaries. Those salaries were there in 2022. How much is the money now? How much is the value when you get to the market? And for government, you don't need a committee. You don't need to set up a committee to pay this money. In September 2025 last year, a circular was released by the NUC from government that they should compute the 2025 and 25-35% salary arrears. And all universities were given 1 week to do this computation.
Right.
And that has been done. This is October 2025. Nothing has been done. 13 months after, nothing has been done. And for us, you don't need a committee to pay these salaries or to pay these outstanding arrears. For the renegotiation, fine. We're ready and we're willing to come to the table to negotiate our working conditions. After all, that's what we'll be agitating for. But for our test salaries, you can't negotiate freely, you can't discuss freely when you have our hands tied. Right. It's supposed to be a collective bargaining agreement.
So
that's what we're saying. And of course, just as you rightly asked, this is the beginning of a series of agitations. If we don't get a necessary response, of course, we're going to embark on what our JAC has called an industrial war. Okay.
So what I want to get clearly is that there is no date yet for the beginning of a strike. What you're doing is a build-up to a possible date. I know that this held across the country in different institutions across the country, but speak to us about how widespread this is. You are chairman of Uni Abuja SSANU. We've seen some other states, but just how national are these demands? Does this cover all states? What states are excluded, if you have that information?
It covers all our branches and affiliates. That's all universities, both federal and state universities, including inter-university centers. Of course, the conditions, even some state universities are worse it. As I talk to you now, Benin State University, that is Moses Adazu University in Makurdi, they've been on strike for upwards of 2 months. Because some of those that are we have also the Ondo State University in Akungba, they've also been on strike. So it is widespread all over the country. And what we are saying is that governments, both at federal and state level, need to sit up and fund education properly, rather than establishing universities. We're not against establishing universities or other institutions, but the ones you have, properly fund them so that they'll be able to deliver quality education to our future generation. And so this strike is all over, it is widespread, and it was well monitored, and this is just the beginning, as I said, of more serious union agitations in the days to come, if government fail to respond to our demands.
But the Minister of Education has also been speaking. I imagine you heard when he spoke and appealed to unions not to go on a strike because the president's mandate is that no child should be out of school by reason of a strike. And he has said that about 80% of all of your demands are similar, just about 20% are peculiar to the unions. So in the sense of government responding, how would you rate the government? Because the minister has said, well, first, slow down. We've even had some sort of expanded committee to deal with these issues. So come to the table and let's have that conversation. When are you meeting with government next?
Well, for the meeting with government, We had a meeting with government on the 6th, that's just on Monday. Before then, we had on 22nd of September, and we also had some in July. We've been meeting with government. Government also have been giving promises and assurances, especially this current minister. At least they are showing understanding. But of course, understanding doesn't put food on our table again. What we're saying is that we're not afraid of them, but for you to implement some of these issues, first, renegotiation of the 2009 agreement is there. Payment of our 2 months with X salaries. This is not difficult to do. Payment of 35%, 25% salary arrears. This was freely awarded by government in 2022. It was not even negotiated. But the same government has failed to implement what he desired on its own volition to give to workers. And also, the third-party deductions, these are deductions that are paid to other agencies like tax, national health insurance, national housing fund, union cooperatives, and thereabouts. These are money that are taken from my salaries with my own volition to be paid to other parties. This money has been deducted from my salary since 2022, but today it has not been paid. So at least government should show some good faith by at least releasing these 2 months salaries, paying these 25% arrears, paying third-party deduction, while we go to the negotiation table to continue negotiation on the 2009 agreement. So these are the 5 or 6 issues that we're talking about. And this other one doesn't need any committee for its implementation. So
we'll wait to see again, as I've said, how these things play out. The government has said this is the most they have budgeted for education, about 60%, even more than what we had before in terms of budgeting, right? So a lot of people expect that this will be some sort of an easy conversation. If there's more budgetary allocation to education, then these agitations should not be an issue, except that these things are carried over from 2009. So if you could give us a list, maybe your list of most important demands, from the most important to the least important, what would it be? Sort of itemize it for Nigerians this morning.
Yeah, thank you. The most important is the renegotiation of the 2009 agreement. We've been on this for 16 years. The second is the release of our 2 months with their salary.
When you say renegotiation, do you want a new negotiation, or you want the renegotiated 2009 agreements to be met? And what is that negotiation about?
Thank you. You see, these other issues that I listed under those are part of the unfulfilled aspect of the 2009 agreement. But of course, an agreement that we entered 16 years ago is long overdue for renegotiation. In fact, in that document itself, it was agreed by all the parties that this agreement will be renegotiated every three years. So that means we'll have had 5 renegotiations if it's being implemented faithfully. So that is topmost on the agenda. That look, we need to look at what we agreed in 2009 and renegotiate it. But before we do that, one of the consequences of your failure to implement your own part was we had a strike in 2022 and you decided to withhold our salary, a legitimate strike that we had. So we're saying that release those salaries, even though it doesn't mean anything, it doesn't have any value as it were today, but at least to show good faith, pay us those salaries, remaining 2 months of those salaries. The third is that you also withheld third-party deductions from even the 2 months you pay. Release those ones so that we can meet our obligations to our bankers, to our creditors. Because if you don't have salary for 2 months or for 4 months, you have to survive. Some of our members took loans. And those loans, because the salary has not been paid today, they are paying it at high premium interest, further worsening the economic conditions. And what we're also saying is that you also, on your own volition, decide to give a wage award in 2022 of 25%, 35% salary increment. Arrears of that wage award given by government on its own volition without any negotiation with the unions is still pending. Release that to show that you should demonstrate good faith.
So, Mr. Yusuf,
our pensioners too are languishing. So these are things that we're talking about, but on the list is actually to renegotiate the 2009 agreement, top of the list.
So I want you to speak to an issue that is of concern. In fact, one of the front pages spoke to that, and that is the condition of the living condition of Nigerian students in tertiary institutions. One, the facilities are not enough. Over 100,000 students jostling for very few accommodation slots. So that means you'll have 8 students, 10 students, 12 students staying in a small room that was originally meant for maybe 2 or 4 people. That is terrible, because that would affect the kind of education they get. The condition is very important. So you wonder, what kind of students are we producing at the end of the day? Why is that the case, really, Mr. Yusuf? And what must be done? Is that part of the agitation that you're making currently? And what must be done to ensure that that is fixed in the shortest possible time as well?
Yes, that is part of agitation, because one of our opening statements is that we talk about the poor funding, the state of funding of Nigerian universities. All universities in Nigeria have got most of their infrastructure by the intervention of TED Fund. And we should know that TED Fund is an interventionist agency. They are the ones that are intervening in this thing. For example, when the university where I come from, accommodation for students, even for staff, is a major challenge. You have just 5,000, 6,000 bed spaces for over 50,000 students. Where would the other 45,000 go and stay? That is the stark reality. So you have students in a space that is supposed to ideally accommodate four students. You have over 10 students staying in those accommodations, stretching the infrastructures. And most of the people that even mentor those ones are my members. And I know the challenges they undertake every day to make sure those facilities which are designed for maybe 500 students is being occupied by over 6,000 students. So sincerely, we need to declare a state of emergency with respect to the facility in the universities. Not even only about hostels, even the classrooms and other working conditions that our members undergo. Because sincerely, the situation is deplorable and it's very pathetic and it's most unfortunate, and you can't expect to produce the best when you have these situations for them. Even some of them don't even, they hang around in the classrooms, in the church, in the mosques and things like that to try to find a place to put their head. Because accommodation outside campus is also not available, because these are also from private individuals. So we need to at least come to a ground where we have involvement of everybody, both the government, private individuals, and industry, to assist, especially with respect to hostel accommodation, not only for students, even for staff too. Because most of us too have to commit long distances to get to our campuses. And of course, you said increase funding for education. But you also have to remember that new institutions also have been created by government. And most of those fundings will also be channeled to those institutions so that they will be able to take off properly. So for example, yes, you may have more allocation, but also it is going to be thinned out over a larger number of institutions across the country.
But
so
my question,
we need to do something very deliberate about education.
My question is,
that is funding and making sure that those funds get to the right places.
Right, but here's my question as we wind down. What portion, or what part of your agitation contains the living conditions, or that part that you mentioned? Which of the agitations encapsulates that?
Yes, in the 2009 agreements, if you look at Chapter 4, specifically deal with funding of universities. And in 2012, 2013, during the then Jonathan administration, agreement was made between government that 25 billion will be released annually for specific interventions in these areas that affect students and university facilities. But from the ones that were released in 2012 and 2013, I think the last we had was last year, when TED Fund need to take up and release over 80 billion naira to all universities, about selected universities, that they should use to upgrade and maintain facilities. But of course, if you're supposed to get 25 billion consistently for the past 12 years, and you only got it once or twice, you can see the gap that still exists, and that is why. And that is why we're talking that this agreement needs to be negotiated, because Chapter 4 specifically talk about funding and upgrading university infrastructure.
So we have to thank you for your time, comrade, and wish you the very best in this agitation, and hope it means well eventually for our universities. I know ASU's countdown is still on, your countdown is also on, so all eyes on the government to fulfill the promises and ensure this is solved. Chairman, Senior Staff Association of Nigerian Universities, Uni Abuja, Mr. Nuruddin Yusuf, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Nigerians.
We'll take a moment now, and when we return, we set the agenda for the chairman of Independent National Electoral Commission, Professor Josh Amokwiton. It's a very important conversation. So stay with us. We'll be right back.